All right, good afternoon. It's good to be back. I took a couple weeks off. I'd like to say it was all vacation. It wasn't, but I had a nice time. But I missed being here. So today we want to give obviously an update on the platform trial and get your questions. But we have a special guest. It's actually the second time that Jen DiMartino from ALS ONE is coming to join us here. I just want to say that this is an amazing organization and supports a lot of great research. They're really one of the first groups that provide support for the HEALEY ALS Platform Trial, and also one of the first groups to provide resources for the Expanded Access Program as well. And with that, I'll pass the Zoom to Jen DiMartino, please.
Well, hello everyone, and Merit and Sabrina and Allison and Catherine, thank you all so much for inviting me back. It's truly an honor to be here again and talk about ALS ONE. Just more than anything though, just grateful for all that you do in the fight against ALS. Many of your patients knew I was coming on today and they all said to say hello. So just wanted to give a little bit of a background and really tell the ALS ONE story and kind of tell what we do. So ALS ONE was, if you could move to, there we go. Thank you. So ALS ONE was founded in 2016 by a Massachusetts resident. His name was Kevin Gosnell, and he was just an amazing, amazing man. He was also a prominent business leader. And he was diagnosed with ALS, the prime of his life, at age 46. He was married to his college sweetheart, and together they have 3 wonderful, wonderful boys. But Kevin, when he was diagnosed, he sort of looked at this like a business, and he was a great mentor to many other businesses. And so when he kind of realized that there were, essentially no treatments or cure, he looked at it as business and tried to think for himself, how can we try to fix this? How can I help, and what can I do with the remaining time that I have? He knew that his ALS was progressive, and that it wasn't going to help him, but he wanted to help all those in his path. So really his vision was to break down the barriers that traditional silos created and really open the door for unity in the fight against ALS. That's how it began. So the linking of minds and resources of our partners, who, as you know, are, you're one of them, world-renowned leaders in ALS research and care, from all of you at the Healey Center at MGH, UMass Medical School with Dr. Brown, ALS TDI, and Compassionate Care ALS. And together, we feel that we are unique for our leadership and efficiency, our dedication to sharing the advancement of innovative research, and really the commitment to increasing access and essential equipment to the individuals living with ALS now. Unfortunately, Kevin lost his battle to ALS just 7 months after our launch in August of 2016, but we've really continued to grow year after year. So we have regular meetings for our research and care teams, fostering a unified approach to advancing those critical ALS studies, while ensuring that individuals living with ALS are living their best life possible. We have our care team every other Monday, and our research teams meet regularly as well. So there are many, many initiatives that ALS ONE gets behind, and oftentimes it's an idea that is in the research lab that needs some quick money to add that spark to and to grow, and from there bigger funding is necessary. And so we're excited to fund many different initiatives, but some of the key ones that we do, as you were saying, Merit, the HEALEY ALS Platform Trial, we're very proud to be one of the founding partners and a significant benefactor. The EAP program, the ALS Parenting at a Challenging Time program, as well as the house call program at MGH, and the full-time research access nurse. So Judy Carey is just, as you know, obviously a tremendous person and an immense resource for not only patients and families, but also to help populate research trials quicker. Dr. Robert Brown's SOD1 and C9 ORF gene silencing trials, which are looking very promising at UMass Medical School, preclinical research for AT1501 at ALS TDI. Together, we also all partner on an annual research symposium, which historically has seen over 300 people, researchers from all over the world unite to share critical data. This year, we're deep in the throes of planning our next one, which is going to be held November 29th and 30th. So we're excited about that. We have funded over $1 million to Compassionate Care ALS to help pay for essential equipment for individuals living with ALS, as well as helped them finish their retreat center for pals and families. So we've got a lot of things that we get behind. We're very proud of that. So since ALS ONE was formed in 2016, we have raised over $12 million. And what's astonishing, because we've been so blessed and honored to have received some large grants to help kind of kickstart us in the beginning from ALS Association, ALS Finding a Cure, and the MDA. But actually 2/3 of everything that we've raised has come from grassroots fundraising. We have fundraising events continually, honestly, just about every weekend throughout the year, and they range in size from very, very small to very, very large. And through that, you know, an organic community is fostered, and it allows patients and families to find joy and to be with others who are going through something very similar. And it's really quite a special environment. So we're excited about all the things that we've been able to achieve, and we're looking forward to continuing to do just that.
Thank you. We'll have time for questions for Jen in the Q&A. So just a brief update. I know many of you come every week, so just a reminder, this is a perpetual trial where we keep adding medications until we find the most effective treatments. We're currently testing 4 different treatments. We call them regimen A, B, C, D. And a person who's participating is randomly assigned to one of the 4. And after 6 months, has an option to also go in what we call the open label extension, which is where someone can get the drug without a placebo group. During the double blind, there's a 3-to-1 randomization, so where 75% of people get the active drug and 25% placebo, and that's the period of time we use to determine if the drug works or not. Next slide, please. So this is our update on where we are with enrollment. 740 people have signed informed consent. Of those, 583 have been assigned to a regimen, and 529 have been assigned to active or placebo within a regimen, and 200 people are already in the open label extension. So really incredible enrollment, and we're very, very close to finishing enrollment for the first 3 regimens, A, B, and C. We expect D will finish enrollment shortly after that, and maybe like 2 months later or so. In the red are the numbers currently in each of the regimens. As you remember, our target is approximately 160 per arm. There are some people who are who've passed screened, have been assigned to a regimen but haven't started yet, because there's always a little bit of a lag time, and those numbers are shown in blue over on the right. So again, thank you for all of you on the Zoom here who are part of this trial and who are getting the word out into the really 583 people who are currently part of this trial, and all the people who've tried to be part of this trial. We couldn't do it without you. Next slide, please. So just a reminder how you find a center near you. It's on our website. You can also call who's here on the call, or Allison Palat, our patient navigators, who will help you find a site close to you. We are adding about 22 more sites that they will be added over the next couple months. I think we have 2 that are very close to being added that will join us for Regimen D, and then the rest will really probably join us for Regimen E, which should start in about November. Next slide, please. So here's just the picture and how to reach Catherine and Allison. I know a lot of you do reach out, and we're really thankful for that. And they've been doing a great role to really hear if anyone's having an issue or a hard time getting a site, and helping people get to the right site. We'll put, I think we will put this information in the chat also for everybody. Next slide. So keep sending us some ideas. Today we have our guest, Jen DiMartino from ALS ONE. We're not going to have a webinar next week because of Yom Kippur, but after that, Dr. Namita Goyal from the University of California, Irvine will join us. And we'll keep going, and hopefully one of these weeks we'll be telling you that we're enrollment for A through C is complete. Next slide, please. Yeah, so I think we'll open for questions. I saw a few coming in, and Sabrina, I think I'm going to ask the questions, especially the hard ones, and Sabrina and Jen will answer those. So I'll start maybe with Sabrina, which is someone received a letter from the National ALS Biorepository, where this national biorepository collects specimens for ALS research. And the question is, have you heard about this biorepository, and do you recommend that PALS participate in this?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, you know, biorepositories are incredibly important because they help us learn about biomarkers, which helps us learn about ALS. So I specifically like the ALS biorepository that you're mentioning. It's actually funny that you asked the question today, because yesterday with my colleague, Dr. James Berry, we were actually corresponding with the registry about the potential collaboration with another researcher that's developing new biomarkers. And so they needed access to more biosamples to be able to validate the biomarkers in a different group. So yes, I know, you know, from my perspective, you know, really it's a great initiative, and we actually connect with them and use their resources.
Great. Another related biomarker question, maybe for you, Sabrina. While being a member of the HEALEY Platform Trial, is it okay for me to also join a biomarker study? And how much will my spinal fluid help our HEALEY trial? Can you update us how soon we might hear about the trial? So a few questions in there.
Yeah, all great questions. So in terms of the spinal fluid in the platform trial, it does help a lot. It's optional because we know it also takes more time and effort, but it does help a lot for us to understand certain key biomarkers that would not be, we couldn't measure, or I guess add more value to the plasma biomarkers. For example, I know for one of the regimens, we are measuring the effect of the drug on the pathway that they are intending to target. Specifically, we're looking at the effect of zilucoplan on the complement. That's one of the regimens. Again, that's just an example of how we use the spinal fluid. We could not get the information otherwise. So even if only few people donate, that's still you know, helpful, because it allows us to do some of the analysis that we couldn't do otherwise. In terms of being part of a biomarker study while you are in the platform trial, it's sort of tied to the previous question. You know, it's yes, there are a lot of other biorepositories and biomarker studies, and I always support participation in these, because as long as you're not receiving another investigational product, you're just donating, for example, plasma samples or urine samples, etc. It just contributes to the science and to ALS, so it's kind of doubles your contribution, and again, it doesn't affect participation in the trial. The only studies that would affect participation in the platform trial are those where you would get a different experimental drug, not just biomarkers. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So there's 2 questions about clean, and maybe I'll combine them, and Sabrina, if you can answer, and then I'm happy to fill in anything too. So one is that Clean announced final patient visit completed in their rescue ALS study, which is their study in Australia. When would you expect the unblinded results to be available, and will this affect the platform trial direction at all? Maybe start with that one.
Yes, so I don't have an exact date, but I believe that the final results are expected perhaps for later this year or early next year. It's a small study. It's actually a biomarker study based on neurophysiology biomarkers. For those of you who are familiar with EMGs, kind of the shocks and needle tests to test the nerves and the muscles, that's the type of study that is part of the Australian study. So again, I think it's valuable information, but it captures different outcomes. We don't have that in the platform trial. We have other outcomes. So I think it will provide complementary information.
Yeah, I agree. It's like I think 45 people
yeah.
have drug, half on placebo. So it's a small study, so it'll be important information, but I don't think it would change what we're doing if it's, you know, if it hits the biomarker, doesn't hit the biomarker, because it's so small. But we're obviously sharing safety data with the investigators there, and that's important. The other clean question was that that clean announced that it plans to quadruple production capacities to support their drug. Does this announcement mean that the clinical trial for their drug shows promise to FDA for approval, or what does this mean?
Well, this is actually very common in drug development. It's not unique to clean. Drug companies have to plan for increased production ahead of time of the final results of their trials. And that's because what drug companies want to avoid is to have the final results and perhaps have positive results and not have the drug available. Specifically, the clean drug is a drug that's complex to manufacture. So it's a very special formulation. So again, I think the announcement shows that they're being serious, that if the drug is positive and the trial results are positive, they will be well prepared to deliver. But again, that doesn't mean that we know anything about the results.
And there's a question for Jen, and this is around the EAP program. So which part of the EAP program are you supporting?
So I think, Merit, that's a very good question. I think it's, I'm not sure where you've directed the exact funds to go, but I think it's from what I understood correctly, is so that patients can be on the program for 6 months or a year at a time, if I remember correctly. That's where we.
Exactly. Yeah. So, one of the many great things about ALS ONE is that they believe in people and ideas, and they give the funds, and they don't micromanage everything. So I do appreciate that. But there's also, so we know that to support one person for a year in expanded access, that costs on average about $10,000. And that does include the drug, which is often donated from the company. So the support from ALS ONE has now supported over 10 people to be in EAP for a year. And every person is a step forward of giving other options. So we're really grateful for that. The other question for Jen is around how you work with other foundations. There's a lot of great foundations, and just how you work, collaborate with them.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we fund our partners specifically in ALS ONE. We don't fund anything outside of our partnership, so we know exactly where the money that we raised goes. But I'm really proud to be part of a chain of emails, I guess, if you will, with probably 30 other organizations that anytime one of us is, bouncing an idea off someone or wants someone to share something, whether it's, to pass a piece of legislation or to get the word out on something, we have an email chain that we're all on, and we're very supportive of everyone. Look, we're all in this together, and we were formed on unity, so unity is really our baseline, and everyone is doing such great things. Everyone does different things in their approach, but we're all really striving towards the same goal.
Thank you. So Sabrina, there's a question about when we're going to have our webinars on biostatistics.
Thank you for the question. Yes, we're still working on that, but as soon as we have the slides finalized and approved by the IRB, we will host it, but hopefully very soon.
The same statisticians who are going to do that are also writing all the statistical analysis plans for regimens A through D, double-blind, open-label. Those have to be done before you unblind the data, so they've been a little distracted, but they will come here hopefully soon. There's a question about do we include any Canadian sites in our trials, and someone's inquired in BC, which is over, I believe, in Vancouver area, and they haven't heard back from the clinic, from their clinic.
We are not including Canadian sites, but we are including Canadian patients or participants. So we do have a few Canadians that have been enrolled in the trial. They do have to travel to the US. Actually, a few weeks ago, you may look it up in the recordings. We had Dr. Weiss, who is the PI at the University of Washington. He came and presented as a guest speaker and actually spoke about his experience in terms of enrolling people from Canada. So they came up with a very good plan and process. They had to petition for them to cross the border, etc. But basically, they have a few Canadian citizens enrolled.
I do want to say that we did go and talk to the Canadian ALS trialists about the platform trial, and we are very willing to add Canadian sites. I think at that time, maybe because of COVID or other reasons, the investigators did not want to take this on. But I think that's the next step, is we want to add Canadian sites. But in the meantime, we have all the other northern states are very open and willing, and if we didn't still have a pandemic, it would be a lot easier to do that as well. So there's a question about open label extension. Sabrina, I'll ask you this. If I am in an open label extension and the results don't show up as positive, can I move to another open label regimen, or do I need to start over in a new regimen?
That's an important question. So if someone is participating in a regimen and the results are not positive, they would have to re-enter the trial from the beginning and be assigned to a new regimen. So there is a reason for that. The open label extension is actually part of the trial and really helps us gather data about the long-term safety and effects of that specific drug. So we need essentially to capture the entire trajectory from the beginning, double-blind, and then continuation into the open label extension. And this is because there are different regulations and requirements. If a drug is positive, in order to be registered, you need to have enough information on a certain number of people for a certain period of time. I believe there's some regulations about 100 people for at least 12 months. So we do need to have information long-term to be able to support a new drug if the results are positive.
Thank you. And there's also a question about kind of advocacy. So how can we make more noise about this illness, which it might not be getting the necessary attention and medical funding it so desperately needs?
I would defer to Jen, since she's doing that. Like, she's really doing amazing work.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, you know, I definitely would say talk to your congressman. I know, you know, IMALS, they do a tremendous job at advocacy, and everyone that I speak to that is impacted by ALS, you know, they just try so hard to get in touch with their congressman and to get appointments and to attend meetings where they know they're going to be, so that they can ask those tough questions. And I give so much credit to them all to be such great advocates. But I think it's all about that. It's trying to, you know, be present, be out there, which we know is so difficult. But it's really just to, you know, to reach out to the powers that be that make those decisions, and that's the key. That is the key. Yeah,
I agree, and I echo Jen's comments about IMALS. I think they've changed the advocacy landscape, and it's been great.
Yeah.
And they have Sabrina and I talking to our senators about ALS Act. And
Yes.
I never thought I would have to try to convince a Democratic senator about something. So it's but I think Brian and his team have done most of the legwork. So we're going to talk to them about expanded access. So there's a couple of questions left. One is, do you see the return of virtual site visits for clinics due to new variants?
Yeah,
Sabrina.
we do have the possibility. So we built in the possibility in 2020. And so some visits can be done by telemedicine in a virtual environment. Now, I would say that, as discussed on this webinar before, if we can see people in person, we can get the biomarkers that are so important. So by doing things in telemedicine, obviously we lose that piece. Having said that, absolutely, we want to do everything possible to safeguard everyone's safety. So that's a possibility that's in the protocol. So sites can activate it. There's obviously geographic, differences in terms of when that might be needed, and so we do have the flexibility for each site to decide.
So there's a question from someone who's in the HEALEY platform trial and asks, will you be seeing my biomarkers or just how the medicine is affecting my ALS in general? We do both.
Yeah, both, right. So we do both. We capture the effect of the drug on ALS scores and other functional outcomes or clinical outcomes, but then we also look at the effect on biomarkers.
There's a question about regimen B, verdiperstat. So the verdiperstat is a myeloperoxidase inhibitor, and it's effective in an animal model of a different neurodegenerative disease called MSA. The question is, how come we started this trial without verdiperstat being tested in an ALS mouse model?
Yeah, so first of all, maybe while I try to answer, Catherine, if you can post the recording, the link to the recording. We did have the researchers from the company Biohaven come and speak on this webinar, and they gave an extensive presentation about the scientific rationale, so you can always watch that. But essentially, so while we don't have ALS data, as was discussed on that webinar, there is significant data suggesting that the mechanism of action of the drug is very important in ALS. And so the idea is that if you can turn that off, the mechanism that we know from several other studies in ALS models to be so important, then hopefully we can affect outcomes in ALS.
Yeah, that's one of the few drugs that actually has data in people that show that it hits its target and lowers inflammation using this PET ligand marker. So we were really excited about it. So back to the advocacy, someone, maybe Jen, I don't know if you could answer this one. Why don't we use public service announcements? Other diseases flood the airways with these.
Yeah, I will say that is something that I would love to see. Again, we try to get donated billboard space. It's all about, it's all about the money and where I guess you want to put that money. And we have been very lucky to have been given billboard space, once in a while for things, but never haven't gotten onto the actual airwaves. But you're absolutely right. I think it's a wonderful question, and I think there should be more advertising for the disease in general on a large scale platform. But I think it comes down to the funding, because no one's going to want to donate those airwaves, unfortunately. But we continue to try, and I know that everyone out there also continues to try. So hopefully that will happen. Hopefully we'll see that. I know that I Am ALS, again, to talk about what they did, but they kind of had a very cool thing a year or two ago, kind of taking over Times Square with many billboards, and that made a huge impact. So we just keep pushing and try to make that happen.
Someone also wrote here if they could email any of the panelists to find out more about the regimens or drugs. And absolutely, yeah. Please, you can reach out to any of us, and also, we have the webinars, but we can go as deep as, well, we'll try to go as deep as your questions to give you what's helpful. So last question here is about soccer. I know we're a little over. Soccer, with approximately 6 times as many fans as baseball, you think the soccer worldwide ALS day, or maybe a week, would already have been accomplished?
That would be fantastic. What an idea. I would say that, as you know, I come from Italy. It's actually, ALS is known as the soccer player disease, because there were many people who were, many famous soccer players, including a couple on the national team that were affected. So that's a great idea.
It should be in every sport, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was a huge success to get Lou Gehrig's day. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, so keep moving on. Anyways, good to see everybody virtually, and hope to see you, I guess, in 2 weeks then.
Thank you all.
Take care.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Jen.